Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Theresa May has made a big deal out of her commitment to help people on middle incomes who are just about managing. And early this week, we should get a good sense of what that means in practice when plans to bring down the cost of housing and protect renters are published in the government's new white paper. The paper is expected to introduce new rules on building homes on Greenbelt land. Community Secretary Sajid Javid has previously said politicians should not stand in the way of development, provided all options have been considered. Also rumoured are new measures to speed up building the 1 million new homes the government promised to build by 2020, including imposing 5-year quotas on reluctant councils. Reports suggest there will be relaxation of building height restrictions, allowing homeowners and developers to build to the height of the tallest building on the block without needing to seek planning permission. Other elements trailed include new measures to stop developers sitting on parcels of land without building homes, so-called land banking, and moving railway station car parks underground to make room for new homes. The government today said it will amend planning rules so more homes can be built specifically to be rented out through longer-term tenancies to provide more stability for young families, alongside its proposed ban on letting agent fees. And the Housing Minister, Gavin Barwell, joins me now. Welcome to the programme. Home ownership is now beyond the reach of most young people. You're now emphasising affordable homes for rent. Why have you given up on the Tory dream of a property-owning democracy?
So we haven't given up on that. If you actually look at the statistics, the decline in home ownership in this country started in 2004. So far, we've managed to stop that decline. We haven't yet reversed it, but we are absolutely wanting to make sure that people that want to own can do so. But the Prime Minister was very clear, Andrew, that we have to have a country that works for everyone, and that means we have to have something to say to those who want to rent as well as those that want to
home ownership among young people is now down to 35%. It used to be over 60%. Are you telling me that during the lifetime of this government, that's going to rise?
Yeah, we want to reverse the decline. We've stabilised it. As I said, the decline started in 2004 under Labour. They weren't really bothered about it. We've taken action, and that has so far managed to stop the decline getting further.
Is it going to rise?
Yeah, we've got to try. We've got to try and ensure that people that work hard, do the right thing, that want to own their own home, have the chance to do so. And we've already helped hundreds of thousands of people through Help to Buy, through shared ownership, and our new starter homes are coming online. So that is part of it, but we've also got to have something to say to those that want to rent.
Well, you say that you want more rented homes. So why did you introduce a 3% additional stamp duty levy to penalise those investing in build-to-rent properties?
So in terms of the stamp duty levy, that was basically to try and stop a lot of the speculation in the buy-to-let market. The Bank of England had raised concerns about that. But when you see the white paper, you'll see there's a package of measures in there to get what you're referring to as build-to-rent for the benefit of your viewers. That's trying to get institutional investment into building new private rented sector accommodation. And that is a very different thing to people going out and buying a home on the private market and then renting it out.
So once again, you're going to try and get institutional money to come in.
Yes.
Just as this government and subsequent ones before have told us it was going to get pension fund money to invest in infrastructure. And it never happened. Why should this happen?
Well, it is already starting to happen. If you go around the country, you can see some of these build-to-rent schemes happening, but there are further changes in the white paper to try and address...
How much? How much money from institutions is going into build-to-rent?
Well, there's hundreds of millions that's being invested now. I just was at the stock exchange the other day celebrating the launch of one of our bonds that's designed to get this money in. So there are schemes happening right now
hundreds of millions
being built. But there's huge potential. Well, there's huge potential to expand it. We desperately need more homes, and we're too dependent at the moment on a small number of large developers, and we need to look at all the things that we can do to get more people involved in building new housing.
You talk about affordable renting. What do you regard as affordable?
Well, affordable rent is defined as something that is at least 20% below the market price. It will obviously vary around the country.
Well, let me put it another way that people may understand. The average couple renting now have to spend 50% of their income on rent. Is that affordable?
No, that's exactly what we're trying to do something about. But whether you're trying to buy or you're trying to rent, housing in this country has become less and less affordable because for 30 or 40 years, governments have not built enough homes. And this white paper is fundamentally trying to do something about that.
You've been in power for, what is it, 6 years? Coming on for 7 years now?
That's right.
Why are affordable new homes at a 24-year low?
So the figure for the last financial year was a very low figure because it's the start of a new 5-year programme. It's not a great excuse, but if you actually look at the average...
It's not an excuse at all.
Well, the way these things work, Andrew, as you know, we have a 5-year programme, and you'll tend to find that in the last year you get a record level of delivery, and then when you start the new programme, a lower level. But if you look at the average over the 6 years, this government has built more affordable housing than the previous Labour government.
It still was last year at a 24-year low.
It was, yeah. Last year's figure is shockingly bad.
That's an embarrassing figure for you.
It is. But if you look at the, I've got the figures if you want me to go through them. Last year was 32,000. The year before that was 66,000. So you do get this sort of cliff edge effect. It is embarrassing. We want to stop that happening in the future. But if you look at the average over 6 years, the performance is good.
You want to give tenants more secure, longer leases in which the rent rises are determined or predictable in advance. Ed Miliband proposed 3-year tenancies during the 2015 election campaign. George Osborne described it as, quote, totally economically illiterate. What's changed?
So you're merging two things there. You're merging the control of the rents people can charge, which we are not proposing, with trying to get longer-term tenancies. At the moment, most people in the private rented sector have got a 6-month tenancy.
Sure. But within that longer tenancy, there would be a control on how much the rent could go up.
So,
right?
No, not. It would be set for the period of the tenancy, but not.
But that's what I just said.
But
that's what Ed Miliband proposed.
But Ed Miliband was proposing regulating that for the whole sector. We're not proposing to do that. One of the reasons why institutional investment is so attractive is if you have a spare home, Andrew, and you want to rent it out, you may well need that asset in a year's time. So you're going to give a short tenancy. If you've got a pension fund that's building a new block of housing, they're interested in a long-term return, and therefore you can get longer-term tenancies and give the increasing number of families living in private rented accommodation more security.
You've set a target, your government, to build, in this life of this parliament, 1 million new homes in England by 2020. You're not going to make that.
No, I think we are going to make it. So if you look at the last year, 2015-16, we had 190,000 additional homes in this country. So we're just below the level we need to achieve that.
That was over 5 quarters.
No, that was over. No, that's over the financial year 2015-16, 190,000 homes. So you are probably looking, Andrew, I think, at the new homes built. But
I'm talking about new completions in England.
That's not the best measure with respect.
Well, so you've said you're going to complete 1 million homes by 2020, so what's wrong with it?
The statistic we use is a national statistic which is called net additions, and that looks at both new homes that are built and conversions and changes of use minus demolitions. So the total change in the housing stock over that year, and on that basis, I've got the figures here if you want to have a look.
Well, I've got the figures here.
Well, you're looking at just completions of new homes.
You promised to build 1 million new homes.
Yes.
The average rate of build in the past 6 quarters was 36,000. So you got 14 more quarters to get to 1 million. You'd have to raise that build to 56,000. I put it to you, you won't do that.
So I'll just repeat to you again, you're not looking at the full picture of new housing in this country. You are just looking at brand new homes rising from the ground, and you're not including conversions or changes of use, and you're not taking off, which we should, demolitions. So if you look at the national statistic, net additions, in 2015-16, there were 190,000 new homes. Now, to meet 1 million, we need to be at 200,000. So we are behind schedule. If you're saying to me, are we building enough homes at the moment? No, we're not. But I am confident that with the measures in the white paper, we can achieve that. And you know, it's not just also about the national total. We need to build these homes in the right places.
Will the green belt remain sacrosanct after this white paper?
So we're not proposing, contrary to some of the press speculation, we're not proposing to change the existing protections that are there for Greenbelt. So what planning policy says is that councils can remove land from Greenbelt, but only in exceptional circumstances, and they should look at all of the alternatives before doing that.
So
and the white paper is not going to change that, no.
No change at all?
It's not going to change that policy, no, because we have a manifesto commitment.
And you still think you'll get 1 million homes?
Yes, because the Greenbelt is only 13% of the land area of this country. So this idea that we can only fix our broken housing market by taking huge swathes of land out of the Greenbelt is not true.
OK, we'll leave it there. Gavin Barwell, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Will the government's plan to boost house building and protect renters work? Could a handful of Conservative MPs cause problems for Theresa May over Article 50 this coming week? And what is President Trump going to do next? All questions for the week ahead. Tom, you've been following the genesis of this housing white paper. What do you make of it?
I think it's going to be quite spectacular, pretty radical stuff. We've heard bits from Gavin Barwell there and beating up on developers, he was quite interesting on. As I understand, it's going to be a whack-a-mole, covering every single problem with housing supply and trying to unblock it, which means certainly bad news if you're a huge fan of the Greenbelt, because they'll go around that the other way by forcing large quotas on councils and making it down to councils where they build. If you fill up all your brown space in towns, then you're going to have to trigger the exceptional circumstances bit of the law to build on the green belt. Beating up developers, opening the market up for renters across the board, and probably the most defining thing Theresa May could do on a whole domestic agenda.
Who knew it was going to be that big?
I am not as excited as Tom about this. I look back at way back to 2004. Do you remember the Kate Barker report? Or maybe you were a defence correspondent
at
at that
time.
Successive governments, successive prime ministers have been promising to address the critical housing shortage. They all say it. Back in 2004, Kate Barker recommended hundreds of thousands of new homes. 2007, Gordon Brown talked about 3 million new homes by 2020. It never happens. And the reason is, at the end of the day, this is local politics. Local councillors need to keep their seats, and they will not keep their seats if there are hugely controversial developments locally that they support. Yes, the government can and are proposing to, by the looks of things, sort of overrule councils that don't back local developments, but they may well find themselves completely inundated with those cases.
I think that's the whole point of it. The whole point is to take on those NIMBY, often Tory local councils, and force them to build. And quite frankly, I can't think of a better defining issue for Theresa May and her just about managing's agenda, which we haven't seen a whole load of in practice yet, than sticking one in the eye of some quite well-off, tough countryside Tory councils.
The government gives councils a quota of homes they have to fulfil. They don't meet that quota, or they run out of land to meet the quota. The government then comes in and tells them that they have to build on the green belt. How is that going to work?
Well, at the moment, the Greenbelt is utterly sacrosanct in British politics. So I think they will have to do some work on trying to educate people about what the Greenbelt often means in practice.
But
it
some
often
bits
means
of it aren't that green.
potato farms, it means golf courses, huge amounts of golf courses. So I think that at the moment, the idea that people have of the Greenbelt of it being verdant fields probably needs to be dismantled. But you're right, it is a huge fact. But I agree with Tom, actually. You know, there are 11 million people in the private rental sector in the UK. At the last election, more of them voted Labour than Conservative. This is an area where Theresa May would look to expand her vote. The problem has always been, it's the same problem we have with pensions policy in the way that pensioners have done better over the last few years than working age families. The trouble is that homeowners tend to be older and they tend to vote more. And anything that is seen to happen to the detriment of homeowners means the detriment of older voters who vote more.
I'm still puzzled as to how they're going to get private money to come in on anything like the scale that they would need to have a huge expansion of the private rented sector.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of speculation in this area, and one of the things that locks up the system is you get people buying up land or taking out a stake in land, and then in the hope that at some point it may all free up. But I mean, at the end of the day, unless you have councils far more willing to quickly fast-track these applications, which they won't for the reasons that I said before, it's a very long-term investment.
Ed Miliband proposed, let's have 3-year leases in which the rent could only go up by an agreed formula, probably the CPI, 3 years to give young families a certain stability over that period. He had a use it or lose it rule for planning development. If you don't lose it, you lose the planning rights. Somebody else gets it. The Tories disparaged that at the time. This is at the centre of their policy now.
So this is probably item number 4 of Ed Miliband's policy book that Theresa May has wholesale pinched in the last 6 months or so. And, you know, why not? I think if you look at the change in mood across housing and planning over the last sort of 5 or so years, it used to be an issue very much of Greenbelt versus, you know, London planners. Now you've got grandparents living in houses in the countryside knowing that their grandchildren can't get on the housing ladder any longer. So maybe a little bit more interventionism on the market, a little bit more sort of tougher on renting conditions. Maybe that's exactly what the country
Will they meet the million target?
Well, exactly. It would be a defiance of every political thing that's happened in the last 10 years. But I think Tom's exactly right. If there is any defining difference between Mayism and Cameroonism, it is a willingness of the state to intervene. And it was, you know, when Ed Miliband said he was doing it, it was sort of seen as being practically kind of command and control and communism. But Theresa May has got the credentials of a Shire Tory. She can get away with it.
I've been getting away with it all